I hate to call myself this, but as an audiophile, I like to listen to vinyl records. These are great, but as my vinyl collection grows, so do the digital albums that come included with them. For years I've just been storing them all in my NAS, never paying much attention to them as I've always found Spotify more convenient for digital music. But then it dawned on me, what if I used an iPod to store all my music? I own an old iPod Nano 6th generation, and I love it to bits. But unfortunately, its lack of storage and no Bluetooth functionality means that for the past few years it's been resigned to my junk drawer. Then I realized this might be a really good excuse to buy an iPod Classic. With the ability to be upgraded with SD cards, and plenty of space for a Bluetooth module, the Classic really is the perfect device for this. After watching DankPod's video on installing a Bluetooth module in his 5th generation iPod Classic, I took it as a challenge, not just to match his video, but to improve upon it. I didn't want to compromise on anything: audio quality, the original headphone jack, or battery life. If you want to know how to build an iPod with all the things I've mentioned above, give this video a watch. And if you just want to see the end result, skip to the timestamp above. The iPod I'm using is a 160GB 7th generation iPod Classic. This is a thin variant, meaning I'll have to transplant the back during this mod to get everything to fit. This iPod is quite popular as it was available for sale for over 5 years and only discontinued in 2014 due to a lack of hard drive supply. The one I have here is in quite good condition, although the battery no longer holds a charge and the display plastic is quite scuffed up. Before I start, I received a care package from eBay seller Christopher, linked to his seller page in the description below. He said he sent me something for my project, so let's open it up and see what's inside. A replacement piece of display plastic and an iPod opening tool. This is great and should help my iPod look good as new. If you want to try this yourself, there is a list of schematics and tools in the description below. To do this, you will need a thick iPod or thick replacement backplate, a thick headphone jack and hold switch, a 3000 mAh battery, although judging by its size, this one's probably more like 2000 mAh, a gutted Tautronics TT-BA07 Bluetooth transmitter, an iFlash Solo. The Duo and Quad are likely too big to fit, and an SD card of your choice. I chose a 400GB SanDisk microSD card. You'll also need an assortment of tools and materials, all listed in the description below. The first thing we have to do is open our iPod. This is quite a difficult process, and you'll need to be very careful when doing this as not to damage your iPod. The frame has 13 metal clips securing it to the back panel. You'll need to unlatch each one carefully with your iPod opening tool. It helps to have a picture or another back panel on hand for you to use as reference to where each clip is. Having multiple tools makes life much easier. That way you can always have one stuck between to stop the plates from clamping back together. For the bottom of the iPod, you can slightly bend the charging port so you can get a pick in from the front. If you're still having trouble opening your iPod, I've linked an excellent video below that goes through the process in more detail. Once you've separated the two halves of the iPod, disconnect the battery flex cable with a pair of tweezers. Be careful though, as the connector is quite fragile. The iPod can then be opened like a book. The iPod is now open, and we can begin to remove the old hard drive to gain access to the headphone and hold switch connector. This cable can also be removed. You'll have to unlatch the connector with tweezers before pulling it out. Now the battery can be gently pried out of its place. Be gentle as you work your way around it with a plastic pick, as puncturing it can lead to it catching fire. As you can see, my battery is already very swollen. Luckily I opened this iPod when I did, otherwise this could have led to the display getting damaged. Next up, I removed the headphone jack and hold switch from the old backplate. I won't be transplanting these into the new backplate though, as the thick case variant of these cables is slightly different, but I'll be using them for testing. I get started on preparing the Bluetooth board. The battery and connectors will have to be removed for it to fit properly into the iPod, as the Bluetooth module will be drawing power from the iPod battery now instead. Just like the iPod battery, this battery can be removed with some delicate prying with a plastic pick. To remove the micro USB connector, I simply snap it off with a pair of cutters. I don't care if I damage any of the solder pads, as we won't be needing them anymore anyway. As for the audio jack, we have to be a bit more careful here. What I did was gently crack all the plastics with my cutters, without damaging the metal feet. Once the plastic is mostly out of the way, I can desolder the feet individually, leaving the bare solder pads. Unfortunately, I ripped out one of the pads. Luckily, I was able to find a spot further up the trace that I could solder into instead. Once the connector is clear, I soldered wires to the pads. We should only need 3 wires, one for each channel and the ground. If you need more information on which wire goes where, please refer to the wiring diagram I linked in the description. I use a small dab of blue tack to keep all the wires still once they are soldered. That prevents them from snapping off and undoing all my work. The original power button now needs to be desoldered. I gently pry on it with my tweezers as I warm up each pad with my iron to remove it. Now to separate the iPod front plate from the chassis. There are 6 Phillips screws that hold the two halves together. Make sure to disconnect the LCD connector, as the LCD is adhered to the front plate. Once disconnected, gently pry the two halves apart with a spudger. Work your way around, but don't exert too much force. With the frames separated, you can put the front plate to one side and focus your attention on the iPod motherboard. We will be soldering wires to the battery connector to give power to the Bluetooth module. I start by putting some dabs of fresh solder on each pin. Then I connect the wires. It can be quite tricky to get a solid connection, so it might take some time to get both wires properly connected. Remember, you can use blue tack to keep the wires in place as you work. Again, if you're struggling to figure out which wire goes where, please look at the wiring diagram in the description below. Now you can test your two new wires. Plug in the iPod battery and test with your voltmeter to make sure you're getting a current. Once you've verified that they're working, you can put a dab of hot glue on top of your solder points to permanently keep them in place. I kept the battery plugged in for this, to make sure I didn't block the connector with hot glue. I gently removed the blue tack from the wires, as they're now properly secured in place. The battery can now be disconnected, and the wires can be ran up to the top of the iPod. You can use Kapton tape to properly secure them. Don't use hot glue like I did, that was a dumb mistake. Now that the power delivery is done, we can turn our attention to the front plate of the iPod. I work on replacing my old display cover. Once again, thanks to Christopher for sending this over to me. To do this, you need to gently remove the LCD panel. It's held on with a weak adhesive and can be pried up with a plastic pick. Once it pops out, you can put it to one side. The plastic display cover is held on with much stronger adhesive, but can be pushed out of the frame with enough force. Prepare the new display cover and then carefully place it back into the frame. The backing can now also be removed, and the surface cleaned of any dust and debris. The LCD can then be lowered back into the frame, making sure there is no dust caught between the two layers. The motherboard and chassis can now be prepared to be reattached. Put a piece of tape over the middle button and click wheel to stop it from falling out during reassembly. Before reseating the piece of metal that goes behind your display, you should cut a hole out of the top, like the one in this picture. This will allow for the Bluetooth signal to pass through the LCD and out of the iPod. I did not do this to the iPod shown in the video, but later found that doing this small mod will increase the Bluetooth range tenfold. Now gently lower the chassis onto the front plate, making sure to line the click wheel up with its hole. The piece of metal that goes behind the LCD can also be reinserted at this point. This is the one that should have the hole cut out the top. The 6 Phillips screws can now be reinserted. The tape securing the click wheel can also be removed, and the LCD can be reconnected. Back to the Bluetooth module, I hot glue over my solder points on the audio pads to permanently keep them in place. Then, feed the audio wires up to the other side of the board. The back of the Bluetooth board should look like this, with our audio wires running up its length to the other side. A piece of electrical or Kapton tape can be used to keep them in place. Another dab of hot glue can be used to secure them once more, making sure each is in the same order so you can remember which one is which. The 2 wires we soldered to our battery connector can now be ran up to the battery pads on our Bluetooth board. You will have to desolder the original battery wires, although this is very straightforward, so I didn't bother capturing it on video. Make sure your polarity is correct and then solder to the appropriate pads. I temporarily mounted the Bluetooth board with Blu Tack, and then tested to see if it would power up with the battery connected. If the LEDs light up, you're good to go to the next step. I quickly realized that both the Bluetooth board and my iFlash card would not be able to fit into the iPod without further modification. I took a leap of faith, and assumed that the empty space above the iFlash card served no purpose. Look away now if you're squeamish, as what you're about to see is not for the faint of heart. After the delicate surgery, the iFlash card and Bluetooth board now have plenty of space. See? That wasn't so hard, was it? Don't worry, I tested it afterwards and it still worked fine. You might be wondering how I plan on implementing the pairing switch in my mod. Well, since I plan on keeping the original headphone jack, I can't place it in there. And I don't really want to drill a hole in the case either, or have to open the iPod every time I want to pair it with something. I actually thought of a brilliant idea, and it's been in front of our noses for years. The iPhone lock switch. It looks identical to the iPod hold switch, but has one key difference. Instead of moving from side to side, it clicks in. What if both of these concepts are combined into one? A hold switch that can also be pressed in. Well, that's exactly what I plan on doing. And it's not even that hard. The first thing you have to do is cut off the plastic post on the left-hand side of the hold switch. It should look like this once you're done. It can then be mounted into the thick iPod housing and screwed into place. I put a piece of Kapton tape over the ribbon cable so that it is protected, as it is quite fragile. Next, you'll need to prepare a click switch. This one I salvaged from an Arduino button board, and it was perfect for this use case. Any click switch should work, although it can't be too easy to press in, as then it might accidentally be clicked when sliding the hold switch. Just solder 2 wires to it and you'll be good to go. Place the button behind your hold switch and then hot glue it into place. with the button making direct contact with the back of the hold switch. If you do this correctly, the hold switch should now be able to push this button in when force is applied to it. The new button can now be soldered to the button pads on the Bluetooth board. Now to get audio to our Bluetooth module. The original headphone jack has a white plastic protector that has to be removed. Once it's out, we have easy access to our audio solder pads. Here we can connect the 3 audio wires from our Bluetooth board. Make sure you have them come out in the same direction that I do. As usual, hot glue is perfect for keeping all of our solder joints permanently in place. The headphone jack can now be aligned with its post and screwed in. This is all of our important solder work complete. The Bluetooth board can be adhered to the metal plate behind the display, with the antenna facing towards the top of the iPod. The iPod should be able to open and close like a book, allowing easy access to the internals should you ever need to work on it again. If you haven't already, you can now plug your iPod into iTunes and set it up with some music for testing. Next up, the 3000 mAh battery can be prepared. I use a couple of layers of double-sided 3M tape and run it in lengths across the battery. I then sit the battery back into the case with the headphone and audio flex cables on top of it, meaning I can work on them further if need be without having to remove the battery first. If you haven't already, you can now plug your iPod into iTunes and set it up with some music for testing. If you're getting the flashing cross symbol when booting your iPod, you may have to try a different SD card in your iFlash adapter. I had 2 identical SD cards for this project, and I could only get one to work. Once you've tested your Bluetooth transmitter and verified that your iPod is working as it should, you can get started on the finishing touches. Here I'm fitting a new thick iPod charger gasket into the back frame. I put a couple layers of double-sided 3M tape under the iFlash card to make sure it doesn't wobble about while the iPod is in use. I've seen other people put gaffer tape or other materials between the iFlash card and the iPod motherboard, but I find this completely unnecessary, as the back of the iFlash card is non-conductive anyway, and shouldn't make contact with the iPod motherboard. I adhere a piece of foam to the iFlash card to make sure it sits snug between the battery and the iPod frame. Yeah, this iPod was actually made in June, not May. I didn't pick up on that until it was too late. Oops. Put a piece of tape over the micro SD card so that it doesn't fall out if you drop the iPod. The iPod should now be up and running. Before you seal it, you should verify these things first. Make sure your Bluetooth module is in working order, with the left and right audio working correctly, and that the mode is set to transmit. Then make sure that the hole we cut in the display cover is correctly under the Bluetooth module's antenna. You should place a small piece of electrical tape between the two, as it will stop light bleeding from the Bluetooth module's LEDs into the LCD. Make sure the top of the SD card is secured in place with some extra foam padding, as it can fall out if the iPod is dropped. I also placed some electrical tape near the top of the iPod. This was to stop light from the Bluetooth module seeping out the top. I wouldn't recommend doing this though, as it makes closing the iPod unnecessarily difficult. The iPod can now be put back together, and hopefully never have to be reopened again. It's very easy, simply just clip the frame into the new housing and it looks just like it used to. I then proceed to peel off the plastic protectors. I know some people find this incredibly satisfying, but for me it's always been sort of frustrating. But I'll admit, once the adhesive had been cleaned, the iPod did look awesome. Now that everything is finished up, let me show you how easy it is to pair this iPod to a Bluetooth device. First, put your device in pairing mode.
Battery 70%, ready to pair.
Then pick up your iPod and turn on the Bluetooth module by pressing in the hold switch for a couple seconds. Once the Bluetooth module is on, put it in pairing mode as well, by double pressing the hold switch.
Connected to Daltronics TT, the A07.
If all goes well, the iPod and the Bluetooth device should be successfully paired. Once you finish listening to your music, make sure you turn off the Bluetooth module by pressing down the hold switch for 5 seconds.
Daltronics TT, the A07, disconnected.
I've tested this with a range of Bluetooth devices, including my AirPods, and it works almost perfectly. As for the battery life, it's absolutely fantastic. I've been using this iPod on a daily basis for the past month, and have only had to plug it into a charger once. Take that, smartphones. Thanks for watching. I've put a lot of work into this video, so I hope you like it. I've always dreamt of owning an iPod Classic, and I'm so glad that I finally have one, and it's better than I could have ever imagined. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments below. I'll try my best to respond to them. Thanks to DankPods for inspiring me to make this iPod. Without his great guides on flashing and working on iPods, I would never have had the courage to attempt this. If you're interested in seeing more of what I do, follow me on Twitter. From there you can stay up to date on everything I'm working on. That's all I have to say, so take care and I'll see you next time.